Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Sarah Wrigley McDonald and I'm your instructor. This video is going to be one of the most important ones you watch, so hang in here. I really want to share with you how to make the most of your time. But first, why are you going to listen to me? I have ADHD, so my brain works a little differently. When it comes to studying, especially memorization, it does not come naturally to me. I have to work really hard at it. And I've developed a lot of tips and tricks that help me remember things. As you go through my lectures, you're going to notice I say a lot of silly analogies and I use a lot of silly ways to remember things. And I want to share those with you. Also, I don't know it all. I'm not an expert. I'm an expert in biology, not in studying and learning. But I do want to share with you what I learned while I was going through my degrees. So I have a bachelor in science and biology, a master's in science in neuroscience, and then a PhD in anatomy, cell biology, but the focus was spinal cord injury. I'm also a huge biology geek, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know that already. I geek out about the biology, and I'm hoping I will infect you with a love or at least a good appreciation of how the body works. I also love to teach, and these two things kind of go hand in hand. I love biology, I'm a mega geek, and so I love to kind of share that with other students. I also really want you to succeed. I want you to be successful in this course. Not just getting a good grade, but actually understanding the material so you have that knowledge and those skills moving into your next courses. A lot of times when students start these courses, especially because mine are fairly intensive, they tend to get a little overwhelmed and lose confidence. I'm going to really encourage you to stop that negative thinking, right? Be confident. Saying things like, this will be a challenge, but I can do it. I'll find a way to remember this. I'm gonna understand this. Rather than, I can't remember this. This is too much. I'll never be able to do this. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but this really does work. One of my biggest recommendations is pace yourself. If you try and go through this material quickly, you will not do well. All right? My courses are very dense. They're built into the nursing program. And so you're going to find a lot of material here. I provided example schedules for all of my courses, and I suggest that you take them and tailor them for you. Because my courses are self-paced, it's really important that you set yourself a schedule that is realistic, and it also includes some flex time. What do I mean by flex time? Flex time means give yourself a buffer. I usually recommend of at least 2 weeks because life is going to get in the way. Maybe you get sick, maybe someone else gets sick, maybe whatever happens. Maybe you want to take a vacation for a week. All right? Whatever the case may be, giving yourself an extra 2 weeks or so in that schedule before you have to finish the course is going to be it's going to be a big relief if something does happen that delays you. So with study sessions, pace yourself again. Because this material is very fact dense, you can't sprint through it, right? If you look at this image over here, there's probably 30 things that I would get you to label on this image. You're not going to learn that overnight. So no sprints here. It's little sprints here, not marathons. So you're going to study in small sessions frequently rather than trying to do it all at once. And that comes to take small bites. You're not going to be able to go through all of this in one sitting. And your brain is not built to do that, right? So taking small bites is going to be very important. So I say take small bites and chew often. Small bites meaning don't do the entire skeleton, do one part of it. Just do your upper arm. Just do one bone if you find the whole upper arm too much information at once. So it's about portion control. Be realistic and give yourself flex time. Study something, take a break, study something, take a break. All right? Your brain is not designed to study for long periods of time. So I strongly recommend cue cards, right? I love having a cue card, pulling it out, list the bones contained in the upper arm. Okay, list the structures included in the elbow joint, right? Or it's a picture, or it's whatever it is. So short bursts of studying rather than sitting there with the textbook in front of you, feeling like you could just beat your head against the textbook and hoping you're going to absorb information. That's not efficient use of your time. So taking those breaks is extremely important. I always say, move your body, clear your mind, right? So again, as an ADHD person, I didn't know at the time, I only found out a few years ago, but sitting still and studying for long periods of time never worked. So be more efficient with your time than I was with mine. Sit 15, 20 minutes, take a break. I often recommend Pomodoro, the Pomodoro technique, where you study for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. You have to move in that 5 minutes. Whether it's just to run downstairs, run around the corner, run around the apartment, heat up your coffee, start supper, whatever it is, right? Move your body. It's going to give your brain something different to do, right? Because it has to think about the movement, has to think about whatever activity you're doing. So it refreshes it a little bit. And when you sit back down, you are going to be much more efficient in remembering or thinking or studying. So even though you're taking little breaks, your brain is going to be way more efficient. Just make sure to set a timer when you're on your break, because it's easy to sit down and start scrolling and all of a sudden it's an hour later. I've done that a few times too. All right, here's the chew often part. We need to repeat, repeat, repeat. So perhaps you're one of my students that memorization comes very easily. Then I'm jealous. Also, you're one of the rare few. For the vast majority of my students, memorization requires work. And that work is repeating, repeating, repeating. All right? We can't just look at this kidney and I'll tell you in lecture the different structures and you're going to immediately remember it for long term. It's not going to happen, right? Well, if it does, you're lucky, like I said. Regularly, usually, what we have to do is repeat, right? We have to shift that memory of me teaching you this or you learning this on your own from short-term memory to long-term memory. Now, why is that really important? Because if you're in this course, you're headed to or you're in a medical professional program. You want to be able to remember the stuff you're putting energy into, like how the kidney works or how the heart works. So making sure that you're not just mass memorizing to pass the test, but rather memorizing long-term will make sure that you retain that information and can use it for future courses. Because you're going to be talking about the kidney a lot. You're going to talk about the heart a lot. And if you have to keep going back to review information you already learned once, it's going to be very frustrating. All right, focus on the hard parts. Now, this is a little bit fuzzy, so stay with me. I want you to, if you're doing cue cards or other things, the inclination is, if you're studying the heart and you know the flow through the heart really well, but when it comes to the conductivity, right, the nervous system of the heart, you find that really hard or valves really hard or something else, that you tend to keep repeating what you know and the easy bits. But that's not efficient, right? So often what I did when I was learning this stuff and what I recommend to my students is that if you have cue cards or pages of notes, once you know and you can remember that page of notes or that cue card, you set it in a separate pile. And gradually what happens, because I used to have stacks and stacks of cue cards, that stack that you're studying gets smaller while the stack that you're done with grows. So what you're doing is focusing on the hard parts. You're focusing on the items of information that you still need to invest time in. And you're setting aside those that you already know. Now, before the test, you have to come back and review it all anyway. But again, what you're doing is you're being more efficient by focusing on the stuff that you really need to work on still. So use tools to help. cue cards, sticky notes, virtual cue cards. Use the people around you. Talk to other people, right? I used to drive my husband crazy. I'm like, come here for a minute. I gotta poke you, right? I gotta talk to you about this. Here's a cue card. Read it out to me, right? Recruit some people. Get some help. There's lots of YouTube. I have lots of tutorials posted. Use a wide variety of things. And that's where this comes from. Variety is the spice of life. So use your senses. So if you're just listening to lecture, you're seeing and you're hearing, but take some notes. Then it's tactile too, right? When it comes to studying things, when it's anatomy and physiology, a lot of it's about movement, well, especially anatomy. So if I'm talking about flexion or extension of a joint, flex, extend, move along with that. When you're studying movement terms, move your body. When we're talking about different parts of the body, palpate, right? Feel where that deltoid is. Feel where, your thumb is. Feel where whatever is. By engaging with that information, you're going to incorporate it and remember it better. Work with others. Again, it's an online independent course, but if you have others around you that can quiz you, that can test you, that you can just talk to about things, then it will help you as well. I really encourage people to mix the digital with the tangible. So I like to have a physical textbook, but a lot of people use the digital resources, and that's fine. But I do encourage you to have paper notes or cue cards or something that you can take with you, right? I used to use the bus a lot. So I'd take my stack of cue cards with me on the bus. And I would, even if I went through 5 cue cards, it was still that little pocket of time that I was studying. So whether it's on the bus, whether you're in your kitchen waiting for your coffee to heat up, whether you're in the bus line waiting to pick up your kids, whatever it is, if you have something that you can bring with you, then you can have those little pockets of time in studying, because those are really efficient times. You can kind of zone right in for a few minutes and get a couple of muscles done, or, start thinking about the kidney or what have you. And the last one, have fun. And yes, really, you'll find when you go through the lectures, I make silly comments. I'm going to tell you silly ways to remember things. I want you to do the same, right? This doesn't all have to be super strict. This is the deltoid. This is the blah. This is the blah, right? If you work out at the gym, think about it when you're doing it. Make up silly rhymes. Make a rap about it. Like whatever works for you, draw silly cartoons, right? Whatever works for you, I want you to engage with that. And that's really what this is about. I want you to try new things. I want you to be open to change and reflect after each assessment. You need to find the right mix for you. So when I used to teach this course in person, I always say that, well, when I used to teach my first year anatomy course in person, because it's for everybody, when I used to teach that course, I always say that your first course of this magnitude or this style, it's going to be equally as important that you learn how to learn this information for you as it is that you learn the information. And realistically, it's probably more important that you develop those skills and those habits and those tricks than it is about actually knowing the stuff. I say that because if you're taking my human anatomy and moving on to physiology and then patho 1 and patho 2 and micro, if you develop study skills and tricks and habits now in the first course, then guess what happens? In every other course, you're just going to continue to build that. However, if you do what I did in my first year university, which almost led me to fail out, which is you stick to your old habits and you don't change, then it may not work well for you. And it may. If it does, more power to you. But if it doesn't, this is where I really encourage you to reflect after every assessment. So if you do a test and you struggle with the test and maybe you don't get the mark that you were looking for or that you feel reflects the effort you put in, I want you to talk to me. All right? It doesn't mean that you didn't put the work in. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing it. It means that probably, just like I had to do, You have to adjust how you learn, adjust how you approach the material, how you work with the material, what kind of limits you put on time, how much you repeat the material. And that is going to take some work. But to be very frank with you, I don't remember a lot of the information I learned in my undergrad. I do every single day benefit from the work that I put in to figure out how to study, because that carried over to my master's and my PhD, which thankfully brought my marks right up. So my two goals in this talk are to encourage you to walk through this course or whatever course you're in with two intentions. One is to learn the content, but the primary objective, if you're having a hard time with this material, if you're finding it really challenging, is to develop your study strategies and your tips and techniques. Because you may forget where the humerus is or what the cranial nerves are, but if you have these techniques, all you're going to do is continue to build on them. So your future success is much more dependent on building out those techniques than it is about remembering individual parts of the body or individual pathologies. So I think I talked enough about that one. All right, I am a mom. So I'm also really going to emphasize taking care of yourself. So think about an average day for yourself. Is there a pocket of time where you could take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just sit and be quiet and calm, meditate if you meditate, get some exercise, right? Get a little extra sleep, make something healthy to eat, right? So many students, when they enter these courses, the course itself is a source of anxiety, and then everyone has other things going on. So I just want to encourage you to be mindful of your average day and ensuring that you have some things in place that are going to help you be healthy. When it comes time for exams and tests, I do really encourage you to prep. And I don't just mean study, right? So these tests are open book. So don't walk into it thinking that you don't need to study. You do, right? You're not going to have time to flip through all the pages. I'd like you to think about, before you start your exam, what kind of environment do you want, right? If you have a desk, great. If you're doing it in your living room on the couch, great. Make sure no one else is going to come through and distract you, right? Make sure your phone's on silent so it's not going to distract you. Do you want water? Do you want coffee? Right? Do you want water? Do you want coffee? Do you want a snack? You know, are you like me? Are you going to want to fidget? Right? Have all of those things ready for yourself so that during that exam, you're not going to be distracted by the thought of, oh, I should have water. Oh, I want to fidget. Oh, I want a snack. Right? So that as much as you can, everything that you need is at your hands, right? It's right in front of you. Also during the exam, again, related to exam anxiety, so exam stress, many conversations I have with students are around this. I really encourage you to pause. If you start feeling that very familiar feeling of, I don't know that question, I don't know that question, I don't know that question, what's that word, that's that word, oh, and then spiral, right? I've done that many times. What I really encourage you to do, as soon as you feel that happening, just pause for a moment, right? So one thing that I personally have found very, very helpful is the 3-3-3 method. And there's lots of different numbers. But the 3-3-3, and this sounds silly, but I'm going to explain the biology of it in a second. You simply breathe in for a count of 3, you hold for a count of 3, and you breathe out for a count of 3. All right? And it sounds, if you're not into meditation and all that stuff, it sounds very like, yeah, okay, Sarah, whatever. Here's the biology of it. When you start spiraling, going, oh my gosh, I don't know, what's happening? Your body's shifting from a relaxed state to a fight or flight state. So your sympathetic system is kicking in. That's your emergency system. When your emergency system kicks in, which is developed to help us escape from saber-toothed tigers, your front brain, right, your forebrain, is not engaged. All those wonderful things that you work so hard to remember, you're not going to be able to access in the same way as when you were relaxed. So If you do the 3-3-3, do it a couple of times. You will feel your body relax. You'll feel your heart rate decrease. Your breathing rate will decrease, right? When that happens, you're shifting back to your parasympathetic or rest state. Then your body is no longer worried about a saber-toothed tiger. It's in chill mode. And in chill mode, you can access all of those wonderful things that you put so much time and effort into getting into your brain to start with. After the exam, when you get your mark, or even before, it's really important that you reflect, right? How did I feel during the exam? Did I set things up the way that worked best for me? What would I do differently, right? And then about the exam itself. How much time did I put in? How did I break up my time? What did I do with my time? Did it work? And if it didn't work, talk to me. That's why I'm here. I've said talk to me a couple times. I've said reach out to me a couple times, but I thought I'd throw this in here just to kind of emphasize it a little bit more. Don't stay stuck. Get help. All right. In my undergrad, I struggled a lot. And I was too embarrassed to ask for help. So many of my friends were going through the material so easily, and I was having a rough go. But I was so stubborn and so proud and too, embarrassed, I think is the right word, to actually just go to my professors and say, hey, look, I'm having a hard time. Can you help me? And if I had, I may have learned much quicker how to study for me and how to help myself. And maybe I would have learned I had ADHD earlier too. I don't know. But my experience in my undergrad has shaped me. And this is why you've heard me say a couple times, but I'm saying it again now with all these adorable muddy dogs. Please don't stay stuck. I am here to help you. I want to help you. There is no judgment. If we have a conversation and you say, I studied half an hour before this exam, I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do different next time? There's no judgment if you say, I read the PowerPoints and that was it. Or I did everything I possibly can and I don't know what else to do. That's how I felt. Don't stay stuck. I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you grow as a student, right? And learn how to learn for yourself. So I think I've said that enough. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoy these puppies the way I enjoy my puppies. And I hope to hear from you soon. So you'll see that I have regularly scheduled office hours. I offer study skill sessions, and I'm always open to book a one-on-one meeting with you. And you can always contact me by email. Take care of yourselves. Again, that's the mom and me talking. But also, as you work through the material, don't hesitate to reach out. The sooner the better. I love talking to students. I love helping my students. I hope you can feel how authentic that is. And I hope to hear from you. And that's enough. Bye, guys.